Welcome to Daily Life Pod, your source for daily inspiration and insights.
Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we take complex source material from deep research to best-selling behavioral guides and translate it into genuine, actionable understanding.
Exactly.
Today, we are strapping in for a fascinating exploration into, well, the operating system of your life, habits.
And not just what they are, but why they control so much of what you do, and the neuroscience that dictates just how hard and rewarding it is to change them.
Our mission today is really personal. We're aiming to give you a functional blueprint for behavior change.
Right, we're pulling principles from classics, like Charles Duhigg's work on habit formation, and pairing that with some pretty cutting-edge neuroethics papers that really dissect the structure of human memory.
Okay, so let's start with a figure that always just blows my mind. Research suggests that up to 45% of your daily actions are not conscious choices.
45%.
Almost half of everything you do every single day is run automatically by what we call the habit loop.
That's almost 5 hours in a 10-hour day where you're basically on autopilot. And, that autopilot function isn't laziness. It serves a crucial purpose.
It's about efficiency, right?
It's all about efficiency. The brain is trying to conserve mental effort. It's saving those enormous energy resources for the hard stuff, complex decision-making, problem-solving, all of that.
So every time I tie my shoes or, grab my keys, my brain is just saying, filed away, don't bother me with this.
Exactly. Think of the basal ganglia. That's the brain structure responsible for storing habits. Think of it like a background processor.
Okay.
As a behavior becomes more and more automatic, the mental activity in that specific area actually decreases. The system is literally turning down the cognitive dial because the pattern is locked in.
It's moved from RAM to the hard drive.
Perfect analogy. It's in deep storage.
Okay, let's open up that black box then and look at the mechanism itself, this neurological pattern. It's a three-part cycle, right?
Right. It all starts with the cue.
The trigger.
The trigger. It kicks off the automatic mode. It could be a time of day, a particular place, an emotional state like stress or boredom, or even just the action you did right before.
Then comes the routine.
Which is the behavior itself.
Yeah.
Physical, like walking to the fridge, or mental, like a pattern of negative self-talk.
And finally, the reward. That's the payoff that tells your brain, hey, this loop is worth remembering.
But, and this is the key thing, the cue and the reward alone aren't actually enough to make a habit stick.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, the core mechanism is that the cue has to elicit a craving for the reward.
Yeah.
If you don't have that craving, the loop is weak. It's easy to ignore.
The old Pepsodent example is just perfect for this. In the early 20th century, this advertiser, Claude Hopkins, he's trying to sell this new toothpaste. He identifies tooth film as the cue, and the reward is, beautiful teeth.
But it didn't really take off at first. The habit only cemented itself when the company added ingredients like citric acid and mint oil.
Which didn't even clean the teeth better.
No, not at all. But they created this distinct, immediate, minty tingling sensation.
And that's what people started to crave. That physical feeling became the signal for clean. The abstract idea of beauty was secondary. It was a cognitive cheat code.
It is a cheat code. So for you, the listener, if you want to build a new habit, you need two things: a simple, obvious cue, and a really clearly defined, craving-inducing reward.
And you have to make it easy to start. I think that's a big takeaway. If a goal like 30 minutes of exercise feels like too much,
You'll just never start.
right. The advice is to scale it way down. Start with 5 minutes. You have to coax the brain into it so it doesn't just hit a wall of resistance.
And that small win is everything. It gives the brain proof that the new routine is actually doable.
Okay, so we built the loop. What about breaking the bad ones? Because it feels so frustratingly difficult to just stop a bad habit, even when you know it's bad for you.
And that tension brings us right to the core principle here. The golden rule of habit change. The rule is that you can never truly extinguish an old habit. You can only replace it.
Only replace it.
To change a habit, you have to keep the old cue and the old reward, but you have to consciously insert a new routine.
But why can't we just stop? If the brain is so smart, why can't it just delete the bad routine?
That's a great question. It's because that routine is stored deep in the basal ganglia. It's outside of your conscious, logical awareness.
So if you just try to block it.
If you try to block it, the cue still fires, the brain still anticipates the reward, and that craving becomes overwhelming. That's what leads to relapse. You have to give the craving what it wants, just in a healthier way.
So let's use the classic example, the 3 p.m. office snack. The cue is the time and being at your desk. The routine is getting the cookie. The reward might be a distraction or just some energy.
Right. And just trying to white-knuckle it and stay at your desk fails because that craving for a distraction is still screaming at you.
So the new routine has to provide that same reward. Instead of a cookie, you go for a quick walk or chat with a coworker.
And if that new routine delivers the break you are craving, the brain gradually starts to accept the substitution.
The sources give a really practical 4-step framework for this.
Right. Step 1, identify the routine. Be specific, not I snack too much, but I eat a cookie at my desk at 3.15 every day.
Step 2 is to experiment with the rewards. This is the detective work. You're trying to figure out the real craving. Is it hunger, boredom, the need for social contact? So for a week, you try different things. An apple one day, a walk the next, then a quick chat.
The goal is to see which substitute actually satisfies the urge. If the walk works, the craving wasn't for sugar, it was for a mental break.
Then step 3, isolate the cue. You have to pinpoint the actual trigger. It usually falls into one of 5 categories: location, time, emotional state, other people, or the action you just finished.
And finally, step 4, have a plan. A conscious, formal plan. An if-then statement.
If it is 3.15 at my desk, the CUE, then I will walk over to my friend's desk for 5 minutes, the new routine, to get a quick break, the reward.
That conscious plan is what intercepts the autopilot.
But there's one more piece to this beyond the mechanics. The sources really stress the role of belief.
Yes, even with a perfect plan, for permanent change to really take hold, you have to believe that change is possible.
And that often comes from a group.
Exactly. It's why organizations like Alcoholics Anonymous are so effective. They use this exact framework, but they wrap it in a community that reinforces the belief that you can change, especially when things get tough.
That's a great bridge to a wider view. Let's talk about habits that have this outsized impact. Keystone habits.
Keystone habits are the big levers. They're the ones that, when you change them, set off a chain reaction that improves everything else: how you work, eat, spend money.
The story of Paul O'Neill at Alcoa, the aluminum company, is just incredible here. When he became CEO, he ignored all the typical financial talk.
Right, Wall Street was baffled.
And he said his #1 priority was worker safety.
Which seemed totally disconnected from profit. But it wasn't. That intense focus on safety, the keystone habit, forced the entire company to build new routines for communication and efficiency.
They had to figure out the root causes of accidents, which in turn made them fix the manufacturing process, which reduced waste and boosted productivity.
And ultimately led to record profits.
Yeah.
One habit optimized the entire system.
So the mechanism there is what they call small wins. Keystone habits create these small, visible successes that build momentum. They prove to you that bigger changes are possible.
And if you're looking for the single most important keystone habit for an individual, the sources point to one thing: willpower.
Which people often think of as this finite resource, something you can run out of.
And that's partly true. Research shows willpower is like a muscle. It gets tired when you overuse it.
But the good news is,
just like a muscle, you can train it. You can make it stronger and more efficient through practice.
so how do you train it? One key strategy is to anticipate what the sources call inflection points.
Those moments of high stress or temptation where your self-control is most likely to fail.
The training at Starbucks is a great example. Baristas are trained not just on coffee, but on how to handle, say, an angry customer. They have pre-planned routines.
Like the L8 method.
Right. Listen, apologize, thank, take action, and ensure resolution.
Exactly. So when the stress hits, they don't have to use up precious willpower deciding how to react. The plan just kicks in automatically. You're automating self-control.
So this whole framework cue, routine, reward, willpower, is so powerful. But we've been looking at the behavior. Now the sources take us deeper into the actual neurobiology.
Right. Because when we say memory or learning, we're not talking about one single thing in the brain. It's not monolithic at all.
It's much more complex.
Far more. Research shows that memory is managed by at least 4 major, largely separate systems, each relying on different parts of the brain.
Okay, let's break these down. First up is working memory.
Think of it as the brain's blackboard. It's for temporary calculations, reasoning, holding a phone number in your head. It's heavily dependent on the prefrontal cortex, right at the front of your brain.
Then we have the one we've been talking about for automatic actions, procedural memory.
Right. This is your implicit, non-declarative memory. Habits, skills, riding a bike, playing piano. This system is tied to the striatum, which is part of the basal ganglia and the cerebellum.
And the last two are both types of declarative memory, meaning we can consciously recall them.
Yes. There's semantic memory, which is your library of general facts. Paris is the capital of France. The sky is blue.
Got it.
And then there's episodic or autobiographical
Yeah.
memory. This is your personal story, what you had for breakfast, your last birthday. Both of these rely on the medial temporal lobe and the hippocampus to be formed.
But why does it matter so much that my bike riding skill is in a different place than my memory of my birthday?
It matters because these systems can be damaged independently. We see this with patients.
Like patients with amnesia from damage to the hippocampus.
Exactly. These individuals can't form new declarative memories. They can't learn new facts or recall recent events, and yet
Their procedural memory is fine.
perfectly intact. They can learn a complex motor skill, like tracing a star in a mirror, and get better at it every day, even though they have zero memory of ever having done the task before.
And you see the complete opposite with Parkinson's patients, where the disease affects the striatum.
Precisely. They struggle to learn new habits or procedural tasks, but they can remember the training session perfectly. They can tell you about the room, the doctor, the instructions.
So the skill and the memory of the event are stored in totally different places.
Completely different neural real estate.
And that has some huge implications, both practical and ethical, when we start talking about memory enhancement.
Huge. On the practical side, where these systems are located in the brain determines how you can target them.
So working memory in the prefrontal cortex is near the surface.
So you could potentially use non-invasive methods like TDCS, that's transcranial direct current stimulation, basically running a very gentle electrical current through the scalp.
But to get to declarative memory, the hippocampus, that's much deeper.
Much deeper. So you might need invasive surgery like deep brain stimulation or DBS, which involves implanting electrodes. And that's incredibly expensive.
The neurochemistry is different too. With Alzheimer's, we know the memory loss is tied to a breakdown in, cholinergic neurotransmission?
Right. Think of acetylcholine as the chemical messenger for new facts and events. Alzheimer's disrupts that messenger service, particularly in the hippocampus.
Which is why the drugs for it are designed to boost that specific chemical in that specific area.
Exactly. You have to match the tool to the specific system.
And ethically, this brings up big questions about fairness, distributive justice.
Absolutely. If a simple, cheap device can boost working memory for everyone, that's one thing. But if enhancing deep declarative memory requires a $100,000 surgery,
You're just widening the gap between the haves and have-nots.
you risk creating a kind of cognitive elite.
And then there's addiction. The risk isn't the same across all systems.
Not at all. This is a huge red flag for anything targeting procedural memory. The striatum and the basal ganglia, the home of our habits, are deeply intertwined with the brain's dopamine-driven reward system.
The same system that drives substance addiction.
The very same. So any drug targeting that area has a high potential for abuse, much more so than a drug targeting a different system.
And finally, there's the question of identity, authenticity.
Enhancing your ability to learn facts or a new skill semantic or procedural memory, that doesn't really threaten your sense of self.
But changing your personal memory.
Changing your autobiographical episodic memories, that's a different story. Selectively boosting some memories or erasing others, like for trauma, that directly impacts the story of who you are.
So when we put it all together, the behavioral science and the neurobiology, what's the big picture?
The big picture is that habits look simple on the surface. They're these elegant cue routine reward loops. But the neurological reality is incredibly complex. The specific system you want to change, a skill, a fact, a memory, dictates everything. The difficulty, the cost, the risk, and the ethics of that change.
Okay, so here's a final provocative thought for you to chew on. The golden rule says habit change requires a conscious, focused effort to change a routine. Yet the memory system that runs those habits' procedural memory is non-declarative. It's not easily accessible to our conscious mind. So given that tension between conscious intention and automatic programming, what new routine are you going to replace today, and what level of willpower will it take to overcome a program that's already so deeply embedded?